is County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Good to have you in studio today. March is underway, and March is Arizona Archaeology and Heritage Awareness Month. In studio today, we have Ted Tsouras. He's an archaeologist for the Flagstaff Area National Park Service, and we brought him in today because, is he your boss, Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Charlie sent off a list of all the different things that are going on at 3 of the national monuments. We've got, we're going to talk about Wupatki National Monument, we'll talk about Walnut Canyon, and we'll talk about Sunset Crater Volcano. And so we better get started.
Sounds good.
First, as an archaeologist for the National Park Service, kind of give us an idea as to what your job entails.
Well, my job is to preserve and protect the cultural resources in our Flagstaff National Monuments, which usually entails stabilization work to maintain the ruins that have been previously worked on, the ones that the visitors encounter, and to monitor all the archaeological sites in the monuments, to record their condition and document, map, basically record in detail, and just keep track of everything.
Sounds like a pretty fun job.
It is.
Now, when before we started, I asked you, you know, it says right here that in the Flagstaff area monuments alone, over 3,000 archaeological sites exist. And I think, wow, 3,000, that's a lot. But then when we were talking before the show, there's far more than that, possibly.
Yeah, there's more than 3,000 combining all the monuments together, and we usually find you know, half a dozen to a dozen more each year.
Let's get on to Wupatki National Monument. I have to say I've never been there. That's kind of sad because I've always lived so close to it, but I've never been there. Tell me about Wupatki. What is it?
Well, Wupatki National Monument is about 35,000 acres, and it was established in 1924 to protect the remarkably well-preserved ancient dwellings that still cover most of the landscape.
Now, what kind of dwellings are we talking about? Because I'm thinking Montezuma Castle, way up on the cliff, and built out of mud and...
Well, at Wupatki, most of the structures are in the open. There's not too many cliffs, and it's most of the structures are built out of stone, stone and mud mortar. Okay. And so they still, a lot of them are still standing in pretty good condition, and the largest of which is Wupatki Pueblo itself, and that's right by the visitor center, and it's the largest prehistoric ruin for 50 miles in any direction. Okay, I said before you brought the word prehistoric in, so how old are we talking about? Because Ryan's putting up photos of Wupatki as we're talking here. Right. Well, the primary occupation, prehistoric occupation of the Flagstaff area was between 1130 and 1220 AD, but there are definitely a lot of people around before that. That was just kind of the fluorescence of that period. And, you know, so you have half a dozen generations really covering almost the entire landscape around Flagstaff, north and east of it. And so most of the ruins you'll see at Walnut Canyon and Wupatki date from that period, between 1130 and 1220 AD. So were these big communities, small communities? Some were, yeah. Wupatki itself is a large, very large community, and then the Citadel community in the northern half of the monument was another very large community at Wupatki. And Walnut Canyon is almost continuous series of cliff dwellings built into the natural cut-ins in the limestone in the canyon. And so it would have been a very, you know, not overcrowded, but well-populated landscape. What can you tell us about the people that lived there? What were they like? Well, they were farmers primarily, and which is a pretty challenging thing to do in Arizona in general, and especially up in northern Arizona, where we have extremes of both heat and cold, little rainfall, unpredictable rainfall, and generally poor soils. So over time, the residents of all the monuments in the Flagstaff area developed very ingenious ways to successfully grow all kinds of crops. So how? By learning the landscape, learning where the water would go, learning, refining the actual crops themselves to be able to thrive in that type of environment, to need less water, to be able to plant the seeds deeper, using water catchments, rock alignments to protect young plants from the wind.
Is some of this stuff there? Some of the technology they developed back then to assist them?
Mm-hmm. And especially the rock alignments are very visible because you can, and you could encounter these anywhere in the Flagstaff area. It's just a linear row of rocks, usually 1 course high, and seemingly there for no particular reason now, but chances are in the 1100s there was corn growing behind that.
Oh, okay. So the water would come down and fill up that channel?
Well, and well, the rocks protected the young plants from the dry wind that we get in the spring. And they also, the black volcanic rock up around Flagstaff was really useful for that because just because of its color, it retains the heat of the day and radiates it back out at night, so it keeps your young sprouts warm and protects them from the wind.
If you had to guess, how many people, at the height of Wupatki, how many people lived there?
Oh, in the thousands, I would imagine. Yeah.
All at once, at the same time.
Yeah.
It's that big.
And it's not just, it doesn't just stop at the monument boundary. It's a whole, the whole Flagstaff area was densely populated, and for most of it, especially the more concentrated areas, you would be able to see your neighbor's fire light at night, almost continuously across the whole Flagstaff area.
The landscape as it is today up there, the big ponderosa pine trees, do we believe that it was the same way back when they were living at Wupatki?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much the same. A lot of the more well-known sites are down in the pinyon juniper transition, and then even lower at Wupatki. Wupatki is several thousand feet lower in elevation than Flagstaff. So all within this one area, within 30 miles, you can go from desert down at the Little Colorado River all the way up to the top of the peaks and have all those different environments to utilize. So I suppose depending on what time of year it was, they would go off and maybe do their hunting and gathering in this area. And well, now it's this time of year, so now we're going to go up on the peaks and do this over here. Well, that's entirely possible, and it was also likely that you may not have to travel there yourself because there were very sophisticated and far-ranging trade networks set up.
Trading? Right,
from Flagstaff off to New Mexico and all the way down to into Mexico and to the Gulf of California. There's a thriving shell trade, and
how do we know this? How do we know that a group at Wupatki went down to, say, New Mexico and did some trading and then came back?
Well, you don't have to actually go there. You can just get the goods trading from person to person along the route. And one way we can tell this is by at Wupatki Pueblo itself, there were the remains of over 40 Mexican macaws found in the Pueblo, and they're native to Mesoamerica and in Mexico, and those type of birds can't really exist in the wild up here, so they were being traded up from down in Mexico, and along with all kinds of shell that you can identify from being from the Sea of Cortez or from the Pacific Ocean.
Wow, neat.
Yeah.
So has this been a great? You said you've been here about 3 years doing this. Has it been exciting for you the whole time?
It's been really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fantastic place to work.
And then before we take our first break, real quick, I kind of asked you before the show, and I picture kind of Wupatki, let's say kind of like Cottonwood is considered the hub of a wheel. You got Camp Verde, Jerome, Clarkdale outside. Right. I'm kind of curious, was there society like that where we've got Wupatki, we've got our king or whatever it would be here, and then we've got our small villages around?
Well, there's no indication that there was a figure like a king at that time, but Wupatki itself was definitely a center, and a population center and a trading center, and with its ceremonial structures like the amphitheater and the ball court.
It'd be a major city.
Yeah, it would have been well known to everyone in the area, and the largest single structure. You know, just it would have been visually impressive and very well known.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, let's take a quick break. Ted Tsouras is with us today. He's an archaeologist with the National Park Service. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.